Donald Trump's not giving up on his efforts to try to have Matt Gaetz confirmed as the Attorney General, but the witnesses and people that he paid for sex aren't giving up either. We've got new reporting both on Donald Trump trying to twist the arms of Republican senators there fighting back, and the lawyer for the two women, at least, who testified to the House Ethics Committee coming forward to give their client's side of the story about what they observed with Matt Gaetz that, of course, disqualifies him from being the chief legal officer of America and democracy. I'm Michael Popok. You're on the MeidasTouch Network and on Legal AF. Let's dive in to this developing, fast-moving story about will they or won't they confirm Matt Gaetz and what information is going to be in front of them. Let's talk about the confirmation process. There, senators will have people who testify for or against a candidate. We've seen it before in the Kavanaugh confirmation hearing with Christine Blasey Ford saying she was sexually assaulted by Kavanaugh, tearfully testifying. We've seen it with Anita Hill against Clarence Thomas. Two not great examples, considering both those people got confirmed to the United States Supreme Court. But it's important that people come forward with their truths and their authenticity about Matt Gaetz. In particular, we've got reporting that the lawyer for the two major witnesses against Matt Gaetz in the House Ethics Committee report, again, as of the recording of this hot take, we've not gotten our hands on the report. It hasn't been released, but we have to expect that it is bad for Matt Gaetz, or if it absolved him, it would have been released already and he wouldn't have resigned. Mr. Leopard, who is the lawyer who represents the two women, says that they have testified that Gaetz had sex with one of them and that the other had observed Gaetz having sex with a girl, meaning a pedophile, meaning a child rapist, somebody who was 17 and in high school, and that he paid for that. In fact, we have the clip from the interview with Mr. Leopard. Let's run the clip.
She arrived at the party. She had sex with Representative Gaetz within minutes of her arrival. Later on, when she was walking out to the pool area, she observed to her right Representative Gaetz having sex with her friend who was 17 at the time.
And on this question, she's absolutely sure.
She's absolutely certain that she observed seeing her friend and Representative Gaetz having sex against what she described as a game table of some sort.
If the House Ethics Committee report were to be made public, what do you think it would reveal?
My clients want to know that this happened and it's real. They didn't vote in the last two elections. They don't care one way or another, but they do want the public to know that they are not lying. They did not come forward willingly. They've never spoken to anyone without the force of a legal subpoena. The testimonies of her and the other 11 individuals that testified would show that this actually did happen, and the American people would know, and they could decide if that's the person they want to be the next Attorney General of the United States.
Now, at the same time that this new reporting is coming out about Matt Gaetz, which is consistent with what his wingman, who's serving 11 years in prison in federal jail, right, Joel Greenberg has already testified and is willing to testify against Gaetz, did testify before the House Ethics Committee. And if he wasn't in jail, if they can figure out a way to get a Zoom in there, would testify to the Senate Judiciary Committee, which when they take up the Gaetz nomination, Donald Trump is busy making phone calls to try to twist the arms of Republican senators who have jumped off sides and are demanding the House Ethics report be provided to them. We know that from reporting that Donald Trump has picked up the phone and trying to work the votes directly. He's not even, he's basically pushed aside who the chief of staff candidate, Susie Wiles, who should be doing this job, and has decided to do it himself. There he is, just like in Jan 6, Donald Trump picking up the phone himself and trying to interfere. So you have a number of things going on at the same time. Donald Trump trying to reach out and hold that alliance of MAGA and senators together, while certain senators have already said they have major objections to the unserious candidacy of Matt Gaetz. That includes Susan Collins of Maine, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and John Cornyn. But not just them. Others have all stepped forward. Republicans all, and said they have serious and grave doubts and concerns about Matt Gaetz, as they should. Will the phone calls from Donald Trump sort of pressuring work? That's left to be seen. But the public pressure has to remain. That's why when somebody like Leopard, the lawyer, takes to the airwaves to give his side of the story, you always then have the immediate reaction in Trump world. You've got Tim Parlatore, who's come out and basically said in his representation of Pete Hegseth, the other nominee who has a major sex crimes problem or alleged sex crimes problem for the Department of Defense, he said, we're going to basically threatening the witnesses. Now, it wasn't these two witnesses against Gaetz, but you can see where the Trump world is going. Parlatore used to represent Donald Trump in the Mar-a-Lago case until he got fired by Parlatore after he didn't follow his direction to turn over all of his documents. Parlatore said, we're going to go after that woman in, it's always that woman. So the rape victim is always that woman to try to intimidate her. Or they try that he actually said Christine Blasey Ford stuff on us, which is the Kavanaugh witness who tearfully testified, she's a PhD now, about her being sexually assaulted by Kavanaugh in the past. They try that stuff on us. She'll be in court because we have a non-disclosure agreement. Yeah, because nothing says I'm not guilty of a sex crime like paying off somebody, the victim, and making them sign a non-disclosure agreement. Okay, you've heard us rave about Z-Biotics pre-alcohol probiotic. So I have super exciting news. Their team just released another product to help with everyday challenges. Let's face it, there's no diet out there that's perfectly balanced. Either I'm eating too much of this or not eating enough of that. That's why I started using Sugar to Fiber probiotic mix every day. The PhD microbiologists over at Z-Biotics understand that extra sugar is all but impossible to avoid these days, and 95% of Americans don't get enough fiber. So they genetically engineered a probiotic to convert some extra sugar from our everyday diet into a prebiotic fiber called lecithin. This leads to a more balanced microbiome, the key to a healthy gut. One stick pack of Sugar to Fiber and you will get a daily dose of fiber from the foods you already eat. I started drinking Sugar to Fiber every day because I liked having a way to get closer to my daily recommended dose of fiber without needing to change my diet. And I really liked knowing that this fiber was coming from extra sugar I was already eating and I didn't need. With the holidays around the corner, I know I'm going to be consuming a bit more sugar. With Sugar to Fiber, I can stay on track and not let the season throw me off course. Go to zbiotics.com/legalaf and use legalaf at checkout for 15% off any first-time orders of Z-Biotics probiotics. Z-Biotics has a 100% money-back guarantee, so if you're unsatisfied for any reason, they will refund your money, no questions asked. Thank you, Z-Biotics, for sponsoring this episode. Returning to Matt Gaetz, the question is Gaetz going to get confirmed? You see Elon Musk, who's the sort of falling out of favor cheerleader for Donald Trump. There's reporting that Donald Trump is getting tired and getting annoyed by a couple of people who are trying to get really close to him, like Howard Lutnick for Cantor Fitzgerald, who seems to have fallen out of the race for the Treasury position because he's pushing and trying too hard and annoying Trump. Well, Musk falls into that same exact category. But that hasn't stopped him from cheerleading. And he said, we need Matt Gaetz. He said, this is from a Musk quote, we need Matt Gaetz. We need him to be our Judge Dredd. By the way, how old is Elon Musk? Judge Dredd? We have to go back to the Stallone movie. Why? Because Sylvester Stallone is all excited about another Trump presidency and compares him to George Washington. All right. He says, we need Matt Gaetz to be the hammer of justice. We need a big brain and a spine of steel and an axe to grind as our attorney general. Is that what we need in the rule of law, Elon Musk? I know you grew up in South Africa during apartheid, but is that really what our country is about in our democracy, in our constitutional republic? We want a Department of Justice head with an axe to grind? This stands in stark contrast to just in the same hours as those statements were made by Elon Musk and one of the co-presidents, I assume, for Donald Trump, Merrick Garland, is giving a tearful farewell address to the Department of Justice to show you what a real person who's a competent, former judge on the Federal Circuit Court, what that looks like as heading the the Department of Justice. He said to his troops, and I paraphrase, the line prosecutors, the career prosecutors are the lifeblood of the Department of Justice. You are the spine. You are the institutional memory. You are the legacy. You are the Department of Justice. In other words, hold on. Don't all quit en masse, which they're going to do. When Matt Gaetz comes in, America needs you to stay inside and to try to pull him back and not do his worst bidding and worst instincts. Matt Gaetz, who's a failed lawyer, never practiced. I'm not even sure he's licensed anywhere right now, and he did what a lot of failed lawyers do. They went and ran for Congress to have a steady paycheck. And that's what he did from Florida. And so he has no qualifications. He has no experience with the criminal justice system or the Department of Justice, except being on the other side of it as somebody who was investigated by them. Now, there's a lot of hand-wringing going on right now about why didn't Merrick Garland and the Department of Justice prosecute Matt Gaetz when they had the chance? Why did they leave it to the House Ethics Committee to have to issue a report? Now, I've already cleared up that Matt Gaetz is lying to the American people. He looked him in the eye and said, I was cleared by the Department of Justice. He wasn't cleared by the Department. First of all, the Department of Justice, and I've been against them a number of times, doesn't clear people. You either you don't get a declination letter from the Department of Justice saying they declined to prosecute because they don't think you're guilty any longer. You don't get that. Okay, they just drop the prosecution or the investigation and disappear into the ether, and that's the best you can do. If they're close to prosecuting you and you don't, and they don't, they'll either enter into, if you're lucky, a non-prosecution agreement, meaning you committed the crimes, they're not going to go after you, sign on the dotted line that you won't do bad things again, or a deferred prosecution agreement where don't F up again, or you're going to see us at your doorstep for a future prosecution. But they don't absolve anybody, and they didn't absolve Matt Gaetz. The working theory that we've heard is that they had some issues with a couple of these witnesses about the underage sex and sex trafficking, underage rape and sex trafficking, and declined to prosecute, maybe also because he was a member of Congress and they didn't want to take on that fight while they were also fighting against Donald Trump. There might have been some political and other concerns there not having to do with witnesses. But in either event, the House Ethics Committee has spent a full 2 years. We need the report. I mean, how many times do I need to say it? The American people have to demand it. The senators have to demand it. They can't bow down and bend over for Donald Trump. I know he thinks they are his lapdog after the Supreme Court immunity decision, but they've got to do their job under Article 1 and their role in checks and balance to advise and consent or not consent to federal officers and cabinet members. It's just too important. And the blueprint for this is going to apply to the other outrageous, outlandish nominees, trolling nominees that undermine our national security and our public interest, like the director of national intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, a potential Russian agent, someone who doesn't believe in science, being the head of Health and Human Services, or medicine for that matter, somebody who is a Christian nationalist, who wants to start Armageddon and apocalypse for their own biblical purposes in Pete Hegseth. And now Matt Gaetz, as I said, who, if there was a role or a position for a criminal, if there was like a criminal cabinet post, yes, I would be all in favor of Matt Gaetz getting that. But the top cop, the top prosecutor, no. So we'll continue to follow it right here on Legal AF and on the MeidasTouch Network. I'm doing regular hot takes here, as I always have for almost 5 years. I also helped form in collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, a new channel at the intersection of law and politics. We call it, what else? Legal AF. Come over to YouTube and find us there at Legal AF MTN for even more analysis at that same intersection of law and politics, a really important one now in our democracy. So I'll continue reporting here. I'm Michael Popok. Until my next contribution. In collaboration with the MeidasTouch Network, we just launched the Legal AF YouTube channel. Help us build this pro-democracy channel where I'll be curating the top stories at the intersection of law and politics. Go to YouTube now and free subscribe at @LegalAFMTN. That's @LegalAFMTN.